Okay, my name is Rick Roth. I'm from the Ink Kitchen. I also have a production facility called Mirror Image, and I've been in the industry since dinosaurs ruled the earth. I think the main piece of advice I would give someone that's starting out would be that printing is a system and that all the pieces need to fit together. So in other words, no one miracle ink is going to help you or just this kind of press is going to work. You have to make all the pieces work together or it's not going to happen. So I think you got to focus on the entire process, not just one particular part of it. I think the second piece of advice I would give is actually that I got from a printer who at the time was one of the biggest printers. He was in southern New Jersey. I just started out and he was cranking out Iron Maiden shirts on these huge automatics when nobody had them. And his main thing was that he always wanted to be the biggest. And so he had a goal, and I think then it makes it easy to make your decisions. So if you're going to be the biggest, do I get automatic machinery? Yes. Do I invest in, at the time, metal frames? Yes. So for me, I always wanted to be the best, for example. So it was easy. All right, I want the best press. I want the best screens. Sometimes I wish I wanted to be the richest, and I would have made other decisions. But it helps to have a goal of what you want to accomplish. It makes all the other decisions easier. So I printed a lot of shirts by hand. So what you want to think about when you go from manual printing to automatic printing is if you have that as a goal, you can make steps that will lead you to that. And I think some people make the mistake, if they have it, they will come. But you really need to build up your clientele beforehand. One way to do that is to sub out work. People seem so paranoid about it, but there are a lot of trustworthy people in this world. And if you're upfront about it and sub work to people with automatics and tell them that someday you're going to get an automatic, because even when you get one, there's going to be overflow. And if you're upfront about that, then you can have enough work so that when you get the automatic, it'll keep you busy. Just being a manual printer and building up to automatic printing, I don't see it happen that often. It's very, very difficult to do that, and it becomes a gigantic step because you don't really have the right customers, because you weren't taking in those 400-piece 4-color on black shirts because you couldn't do them by hand without giving yourself arthritis in a week. So I'm really against manual printing in general because it is really bad for your wrists, no matter what you do, that downward pressure that you have to put. And there's also not any virtue. A lot of things in life, there's a virtue to doing it by hand, but when you're printing manually, you are trying to print like a machine, only you can't do it as well. So you want to go to an automatic, but you have to plan how to do that, and part of that is getting enough work, and that usually involves subcontracting work to people you trust. The way that you find people that care about the business as much as you do is partly like NFL teams find quarterbacks, which is you got to run through a bunch of them because some of them aren't going to pan out. So you have to be a little bit ruthless, and I think most of your talent's going to come from within. You hire people to do stuff and they will step up, and you need to encourage your employees from the lowest, because you never know where the good one's going to come from. Trying to find somebody outside, I don't know about that, because usually you have your own way of doing it, and if someone came from another shop, you're going to butt heads with them. There's so many ways to screen print or decorate in general on garments that you're usually not going to find the right kind of person unless you build your talent from within. So some of the biggest mistakes I see people making, because I have had the opportunity to go in many, many shops. I guess I'm a pretty trustworthy guy, so people let me in their shops, even people that don't let many people in, so I've got to see what a lot of people do. I'd say the biggest mistake I see, and it's corroborated by other friends I have that are suppliers that go in a lot of shops, is most people don't adequately cure the ink. Because just because it's dry to the touch doesn't mean it's not going to wash off. So a lot of people do not adequately cure the ink, and it's very hard to tell because on that cold, wet morning in March in New England, you set your dryer for a lot different temperature and speed than you might on the driest day in July when it's 100 degrees. So just that example alone. There's no one way to do some of these things, and you really have to have the experience. And people always want that simple answer. What do I set my dryer for? I don't know. Figure it out. And you have to figure it out, or you're going to send out shirts that aren't cured. Is usually that people are hustling. Like, you'll see everything's in motion efficiently, not crazy. There's a difference. There's like frantic, and there's like systematic movement, and you can kind of tell the difference. It's like, you know, one place they're tango dancers, and one place they're punk rock dancers or something. And even punk rocker oriented people sometimes work with precision, and you can kind of see that everything is moving, but it's moving in a synchronized way, and that usually tells me. And then the real main thing is I want to see the results. Let's see the shirt that's coming down the belt right now, not the one you worked on for 4 weeks just to have one sample. And then let's see a whole bunch of samples. Usually I just show me your work, let's see what you're doing. And there's no proof that you're a good print shop like that. You can have the fanciest equipment, you can have the fanciest customers even, but I want to see the prints. Like, let's see the print that's coming down the belt now. So that shows what you're doing every day, and let's see your best prints, and let's see a lot of them. Pricing your work, I think, is very difficult. You know, you can analyze all the different costs, but way more costs than in other industries. I think the costs are fixed. So you think of labor as, you know, a variable cost depending on how much you're printing, but it's really more fixed than that. You can't really let your skilled people go. So you got to price so that you make money, and then you also have to price so that you keep your shop going, and you have to know what your competition's doing. One thing for sure is that you do not want to be the cheapest price. Like, just trying to be the cheapest, I don't see that working for anybody. I see that as a, you know, fast track to going out of business. I don't see anybody making money that way. To grow your business and to get new customers, well, the first thing is you want to keep the customers you have, with a little proviso about that. So you want to keep the good customers. So the good customers, which usually that 80-20 rule is really true. In fact, when I've kind of analyzed it over the years, it's more like 15-85. About 15% of your customers are 85% of the money that you make. So you want to take care of them, because it's a lot easier to keep a customer than to get a new one. And also, word spreads much faster on you screwing up than it spreads on what a great job you do. So you want to keep those people happy. That's the first thing. The other is that new customers are hard to get. That when I look historically at my best customers, from the first contact I had with them till when they send me a substantial amount of work is 3 years. So that is a very long process, and you have to realize that you're not going to get the person you visit to send you all their work immediately. Then also the other thing is that you got to realize that most new customers are going to suck to begin with. That they are going to send you their hardest job, or when they're in a big hurry, or something that somebody else screwed up. And you just have to realize that. So you can't say, oh, this is going to be terrible forever. You got to kind of assess, is it the right match between you and the customer, but you do have to realize it's usually going to be some kind of test to begin with. So that's how I find people. I guess the other thing is you realize that you have to go out and find them. I see a lot of the small shops, and the person will say, oh, I've been, you know, seeing whether I really need to buy safe light covers, and I just spent 4 days when I was slow seeing if I really need to spend that $50. And it's like, dude, you should have gone out for 4 days and looked for customers, and you could have paid for, you know, 1,000 safe light covers in that time. It's hard work, and you have to do it. Some people don't realize that being a priority actually means being a priority. So I have certain customers, they are priority. I drop everything and do their work. That's why I always wondered, like, if you focused on just rock bands, you know, they all go on tour in the summer. They cannot all be priorities. So try to have a few customers that we just will do anything for them, and they realize it, and they're super loyal. And you can't You can't make that up. They'll see through it and you'll lose them. Well, it shifts is one thing. So that if you have to realize that if you take care of one thing, you'll get a bottleneck in a new place. And that's not a problem, that is just the process. So if you start making your screens faster and printing faster, then eventually you will not be able to do your art fast enough. And then if you do your art fast enough, your customer service people will not be able to keep up. So I think that the bottleneck shifts is the main thing. The main bottleneck usually I see if I go into a shop is in setup time. Setup time is the worst bottleneck, and that's either people aren't trained or they don't have the right materials. I think that you have to have equipment that works. You have to have ink that's organized. You have to have screens that are right, or you can't set up quickly. I mean, all your tools have to be right, and then you can set up fast. And most people don't have all that stuff ready and don't focus enough on setup. They're worried about how fast their press will turn. That's like negligible usually in any shop. It's all about how fast you set up. So where you get your information is the ink kitchen. Now, there are a lot of resources, and I think you need to look at a lot of them. It's sort of like trusting one news source. You're really going to have to see through all the bull, and it's going to be from multiple places. I mean, there's no college to go to or anything like that. There's no one thing. I think that's one thing to realize. There's not going to be one source. Your trusted vendors are going to be a very important ally that you have, but if you only listen to them, you're crazy. So you need to go to shows, you need to talk to various vendors, you need to talk to your peers. When you can't go to a show, you need to be online, Facebook and other places online that you can communicate with your peers. Lord knows after a while, your spouse, your employees, your family, they don't want to hear anything about screen printing. So your peers are probably the only ones that'll talk shop with you, especially ones that are not in your area. So now if you make a friend in England, what is he worried about? You can both print for the same kind of clientele even. So find out people you can trust. And that's a difficult process. You're going to trust some people that in the end you shouldn't have trusted. But if you don't venture out there, nothing will happen. I mean, I know printers that are very secretive, they don't get anywhere. You can't get anywhere being secretive. It's not going to help. On the other hand, you can't be so open that you get taken advantage of.